Yes, I know what the title of the video is, and you probably clicked it because of the title, so in case you don't want to hear me address Weiss vs Mitsuru for a third time, skip to whatever time I put on the screen. Surprisingly, I record these before I edit them. So, Weiss vs Mitsuru is out, and I think I want to address some of the things I said about it that might be misunderstood from my reaction. First off, when I talk about how the force behind their ice creation is irrelevant to their attack power, the Ragaz, I don't know if I'm saying that right, did bring up a point that I don't remember if I mentioned in the battle, but is correct, and they both use ice. And if I missed that, boy do I feel like a moron, because on the idea that it works for ice users, yes, it is viable. What I think he means is, and this is also what I would use these numbers for, not whose ice is more powerful, and not who can generate the most force with their ice, but who can generate more overall ice in a given moment. So what I see here is not that Mitsuru can output 259.2 times the force that Weiss can, but that in one single attack, Mitsuru can create 259.2 times more ice than Weiss would be able to create in the same amount of time. So yes, this number is important when it comes to who can create more ice, and who overall has a range and field advantage, but not who has the attack power advantage. If I forgot to bring that up in the reaction, I'm sorry. I don't think I was wrong in saying that they're irrelevant to attack power, but I was completely wrong if I said they were irrelevant to the overall fight. They are very important because Mitsuru having that much more ice that she can create in the same amount of time gives her a huge advantage in range and field control. She could pretty much control the pace of the battle by creating 259 times more ice than Weiss can. She could shape the battlefield around them to her advantage before Weiss could come even close to that. Secondly, when I said I think the later Ruby volumes look better than this fight, what I mean is that the animation software used for this episode doesn't appeal to me like Maya does. Maya looks crisper, less cheap, and generally better. I also think the lighting looks better, and I don't want to talk about the expressions. This does not at all mean that I think the fight is worse animated than volumes 4 to 6. Oh, god no. This battle understands Weiss's method of combat far better than volumes 5 and 6, or I guess just volume 5, because she pretty much doesn't do anything. She basically just stands there T-posing for the majority of volumes 4 to 6. Really, all we have to compare in this scenario is volume 5's Vanal fight, and unlike that, here Weiss actually summons the armor Gigas when she has an opening, and doesn't attempt it every 5 seconds. The animation is very smooth, there's very little teleporting, and it was a far more fun watch, except for the ending. I'll get there. But yes, I think it looks worse as a still image, just on its own, but in terms of the actual animation quality, it is far and beyond superior to pretty much everything in volumes 4 to 6, except maybe the Crow vs Tyrion fight. Yes, I think this is better than Cinder vs Raven, because Cinder vs Raven had a lot of teleporting in it, and a lot of clipping. This had far less of that. Now, on the matter of bias, I know I made that video that more people than I as subscribers watched, talking about how I believe Death Battle would be biased, and I still stand by most of that video, because most of that video is explaining why Mitsuru would win. So people who said I was wrong could more accurately say that half of what I said was wrong, as the actual prediction of who should win was correct. And I'm not at all bothered or even embarrassed by being wrong. That's the point of a prediction. Sometimes you're wrong, like when I said they'd be biased. Sometimes you're right, like when I detailed why Mitsuru would win. However, I'm not one of those crazy people that says they made this purely to hide their bias, because that's a whole other level of cynicism I don't have towards Death Battle. I really like Death Battle. Even if this season hasn't really caught my eye the way the previous ones did, well, except Mega Man Battle Royale, I still really like Death Battle. I did make a parody of it after all, and parodies are primarily made out of love for a product. Do you think Cabin in the Woods was made with contempt for horror? Of course not. It's more like a really loving hate letter than anything, which I think is something the director actually said about it. But we do have to address the ending. It sucks. Now, I've heard a lot of people defend it, I've heard a lot of people attack it, and while they both have good points, I think there's a lot wrong with it, and it has nothing to do with gore or brutality. I did watch the Q&A, and first off, the idea of them getting battle damage as a fight goes on is actually really dumb, and I'm glad they didn't do it, at least for Weiss, because she has aura. If she begins to take damage over the course of the fight, that means her aura is pretty well depleted. I'm aware she was injured in the White trailer and continued using all of her powers, but keep in mind that was 6 years ago, and Rooster Teeth retcons information that comes less than a year after what they'd currently be doing. Volume 5's opening retconned the end of Volume 4, and then Volume 3 retconned the end credits of Volume 2. This trailer was before the show even came out, and if new information is revealed or shown, like how injuries only occur when aura is not activated, I consider it more viable than what was shown prior. I think Mitsuru might be able to have battle damage over the course of the fight, but it wouldn't make sense for Weiss to, because she would never drop her guard in this kind of fight, and the moment she starts to take damage, she's lost. I don't think blood is even close to the problem with this ending though. I don't need blood to be happy, which given the fact that I'm talking about two barely of age girls, don't take that in the wrong way. But what I need is satisfaction. Okay, don't take that in the wrong way either. And to go on another tangent, I don't consider this nitpicking. What I'm saying is, the ending of the battle lacks satisfaction, thus resulting in a conclusion that did not suffice in my opinion, and brought the battle down in quality because I felt it lacked a proper sense of closure. This is nitpicking. The time dilation glyph is portrayed as primarily white in color with no yellow, however in the one volume it shows up in and has a yellow set of gears directly beneath the actual white clock portion. You see how one is an essential part of the fight, and the other one is just a difference in how they portrayed the actual attack? The goddamn ending is kind of important, and the other is irrelevant. I don't nitpick Death Battle, at least not as much as others. You don't see me saying Green Lantern vs. Ben 10 suck because there are shots where Hal has 2 lantern rings. Saying the ending not being sufficient is nitpicking is pretty much like saying the Devil Inside's ending is bad because it cuts off in the middle and shows a web link. You're just nitpicking, the ending isn't important. Or, I don't like how the ending of Mortal Kombat 11 renders both the original and the new timeline completely pointless, as nothing actually matters anymore because our main character was literally God and is going to rewrite history. Stop nitpicking, you cunt! You can't nitpick about the satisfaction of the conclusion because that's essential! I mean, unless you're saying that a bit of clipping ruined it, okay, if you're saying some clipping in the ending ruined it, like how Weiss is clearly not stuck in the ice here, if that ruined it for you, then you're just weird. But what is actually wrong with this? Well, there's very, very little indication of death. First off, we never see Weiss's body. You don't even need gore here. You can literally just have her motionless body lying on the ground with the broken Mirthanasta. Somewhat similar to Cloud in Link vs. Cloud. Look, the only blood there is a tiny little splatter when Link hits Cloud, and then he flops to the ground and he's done. You could even just have her flop to the ground motionless, like the victims of Mitsuru's instant kill in the actual game it comes from. And no, Ben, it's not her astral finish you're referencing. I mean, technically, it is her astral finish, but from a semantics point of view, it's her instant kill. Astral finishes are based on what they have in their own games. Except for Ruby, of course. They didn't have a game like that. Now, another way to make it satisfying is to just have a larger explosion. It wouldn't be the first time they had a finishing move be slightly different. Look at Felicia vs. Taukaka. They had Taukaka literally tear Felicia in half. And I'm pretty sure this is a combination of one of her astral distort... That's not what they're called. This is a combination of one of her regular supers and her astral finish, just without the Kaka kids. It wouldn't be nearly as satisfying if Felicia just screamed and flew off screen into the ether. A lot of Death Battle viewers, the vast majority in fact, do not read up on the rules or other materials. I do. I'm an avid fan who's been with them since Season 1. And these people who don't read the rules might just assume that that, combined with saying KO at the end, implies that Weiss is fine. I had someone tell me the implication is that Mitsuru's move is called an instant kill, but how is anyone supposed to know that unless they played Persona 4 Arena? Most people probably refer to it as an astral finish anyway, and astral finish hardly carries a connotation of instant kill, although it sounds a lot cooler. And Mitsuru doesn't exactly scream instant kill out. In fact, we even see Weiss take a few hits after her aura breaks with no battle damage. Even if you don't want to show her bloodied up, or don't feel comfortable showing a 12-year-old being killed, at least show her corpse. And if you have an animator that doesn't feel comfortable showing a corpse, don't have them animate on Death Battle! In fact, one of the key animators of this episode was Torian Crawford. The guy showed an 11-year-old Red getting completely disintegrated. And yeah, in the original games, Red is 11, not 10. Ash was, is, and forever shall be 10, but Red is 11. And they did address this. Ben thinks her death was brutal, but it wasn't. The fact that Weiss is screaming when the final hit takes place, flies off screen and isn't seen again, isn't brutal at all. Brutality implies that either something really big happened, like in Godzilla vs. Gamera, something really painful happened, which wouldn't make sense in this fight, or something really gory happened, like in Wolverine vs. Raiden. And they did address this as saying, they're really classy, their shows don't show blood. The problem there is that, yes, Ruby does show a little blood. When Adam impales Sienna on screen and she tumbles down the stairs, he wipes blood off his sword and you can see it. That was Volume 5, that was 1 volume ago. They could have easily just had Mitsuru's rapier have blood on it, or have Weiss's inanimate body just lying there. They've had corpses just lying there with wounds in Ruby. They even could have just told Kara to give a more deathly scream. Weiss's scream here sounds no different to her average pain scream. Imagine it here.
Come here, princess.
Doesn't really feel too different, does it? The ending isn't satisfying. Not because it's not gory, but because the only implications of death are meta ones, like the name of Mitsuru's move and the rules of the show. Also, if you base deaths on the places of origin, why did Guts kill Nightmare so tamely? I mean, his goriest moment is just splitting Night Terror's head, which in Berserk, that's pathetic. I think Guts was the wrong example to bring up. You'd have a better chance if you brought up Scorpion's incineration of Ryu as an example. Now let's think of other battles that people bring up as comparable. Warrior vs. Dedede, the explosion is the satisfaction. Darkseid vs. Thanos, the fact that the infinite death of the Omega Sanction is something they talked about on the show, means that knowing Thanos gets an infinite death is the satisfaction. Mega Man vs. Astro Boy, the shot of Astro Boy picking up his own head and putting it back on, whereas Mega Man does not do the same, is a satisfaction. In fact, here's what Mega Man vs. Astro Boy would be like if it was done like this episode. And no, Mitsurugi breaking is not symbolic of Weiss's death, because Mitsurugi does not hold that much meaning in Ruby itself. It's not symbolic of who Weiss is. I'd say her glyphs are more symbolic of who she is. There's something she gets from her bloodline that she has learned to use in her own way, separate from the rest of her family. She took control of something that she got from her family. That's more symbolic than, this weapon is one that she uses. So yes, the ending is bad because it's not satisfying. It has nothing to do with gore, it has nothing to do with brutality, and this doesn't necessarily ruin the rest of the fight, although I still think there are many missed opportunities. So, they don't even really use teamwork with their summons. How cool would it have been if Weiss used time dilation on the Armagigas? Or if she jumped on its blade while it swung to mirror the shot from the white trailer, but instead of her attacking him, it's her being propelled by him to attack harder. It's not as much a missed opportunity as the last episode, but I still think more creativity should have gone into this battle than just being a slugfest. Also, maybe give them a reason to fight next time? Now, for Johnny Cage vs. Captain Falcon. I will freely admit that I was completely wrong about the advantage Falcon has. He is not planet level. I think I just got that from Cartoon Fight Club and me misremembering some things they said. Now, how do we discuss Johnny Cage vs. Captain Falcon? Well, the biggest thing in Johnny's favor is whether or not they use F-Zero Legend of the Falcon. Without the anime, I'm pretty sure Johnny destroys Falcon, but with it, well, the discussion becomes more interesting. So how strong is Johnny Cage? Well, there's very little indication. I haven't found any real calculations. Respect threads don't really help me too much. And trying to see if Versus Wiki has any information just led me to Versus Wiki's spiral of stupidity. I mean, they scale him based on the explosion Kintaro survived in the comics. Why though? Then they also scale him to a Test Your Might minigame from the classic series. But let's say he's as strong as Kintaro is tough. That puts him at having the power to dish out 267.59 tons of TNT with his punches. And he can tank that level of power as well, as otherwise he'd rip his own arm off with that force. In speed, the best I can say is that he dodged gunfire, but if you were to use some pretzel logic, you can say he scales to Raiden moving at lightning speed, because Shinnok fought both of them, and he was comparable to both of them. So you can say he fights at Mach 286,731, but that is a huge high ball. As in, that ball is Pluto. That's how high the high ball is. Johnny Cage's actual feats are kinda difficult to get. Now, he can beat people stronger than him, like Scorpion and Sub-Zero, but he's also lost to Ermac and the like. In actuality, in Mortal Kombat 11, Mortal Kombat 2 era characters managed to defeat Mortal Kombat 11 era characters. Liu Kang and Kung Lao take on their current time selves, and they beat them, implying that not much has increased in terms of power over time. And in Mortal Kombat 2, Johnny gets defeated by Ermac pretty much right before the moment here when he's pulled through time. As for his power of love, and yes, I'm calling it that because that's what it is, that pretty much is stated to only work in Elder Gods. In fact, one of Cassie's intros in Mortal Kombat 11 has her say to Jackie over the phone that Shao Kahn isn't an Elder God and as such her powers wouldn't work. I just realized that when I typed in Elder, I actually typed in Eldar, like the Warhammer one. I guess I got Warhammer on the mind. That's not important. Even if it did work on more than just Elder Gods, that only arises when a loved one is in imminent danger, according to Raiden at least. Now yes, you can say he was just hypothesizing and it can come out whenever, but that's being a little biased towards Johnny. Speaking of bias, I really like Johnny Cage more than Captain Falcon, even in the new timeline. I mean, Falcon is way cooler, but Johnny has a personality. Falcon is pretty much just a personification of... Now, how strong is Captain Falcon while I'm on the topic? In the games, I don't know. Aren't they just racing games? I don't know if he has any real feats. Well, I mean, the Blue Falcon does, but I don't know if he does. In the anime, though, and yes, I think they'll use the anime, seeing that in Sonic vs. Mario 2018, they said they look exclusively at the games and closest tied material, but then include the Sonic animated film that is completely irrelevant to the game in pretty well every way. Captain Falcon is able to move pretty fast, but still less than his Blue Falcon, that only tops 4,000 km per hour or around Mach 3. Yes, Highball Johnny, he pretty well outpaces Falcon massively. If we highballed Falcon to that level, you'd need to give him 100,000 times buff, roughly. With that in mind, if they don't scale Johnny with the same pretzel logic I used to highball him, then Johnny would only be around bullet dodging speed. And, well, Ryu Suzaku, I'm sure that's how you pronounce it. Rick Wheeler, I think his name is in the dub, can also dodge bullets, and Falcon is comparable to him. But what about attack power? Well, this is where it gets interesting. I have to exclusively use Versus Wiki again. His respect thread is for Smash Brothers, and I couldn't be bothered watching the anime. It's a prediction. Death Bell's job is to watch the anime. But I did look into Versus Wiki, so I'm not just blindly accepting what they're saying. Now, he does scale to Black Shadow. They die together, and, well, they're roughly equal. The most important feat of Black Shadow's is that one time he used his hands to overpower a Might Reactor explosion. That's incredible, as those things explode with 970 kilotons of TNT. He can also create a at most 20 kiloton explosion with a finger snap, but I don't know how applicable that is. I don't know what power he's using there. However, what I can say is that here, he very clearly overpowers the Might Reactor's explosion, meaning his strength should roughly be 970 kilotons. And Captain Falcon should have durability and attack power to match that. Compared to Johnny, this means Captain Falcon should have 3,632 times the power that Johnny Cage does. That's, pretty intense. And keep in mind, I'm being generous to both of them. I'm saying that Black Shadow's feat definitely scales that explosion, and Johnny Cage definitely scales to Kintaro. Oh, and Smash Bros. Falcon easily solos both Anime Falcon and every timeline Johnny Cage at the same time. This guy tanked a punch from Donkey Kong? Yeah. Now, with that in mind, does Johnny really have much of a chance here? He might. I don't think Johnny will win, but he does have some advantages. For instance, a highball Johnny moves at over 100,000 times the speed of a highballed Captain Falcon, and he's a master of 4 separate martial arts that he can quickly change through. And he has a lot more range techniques than Captain Falcon. This famous punch attack also takes less time to pull off than Cap, and I'd say he has experience over Falcon. Despite that, I really don't see Johnny winning this. I mean, according to Death Battle's own logic, Sonya Blade can only really output 90,000 PSI, which is less than 1 ton of TNT, so yeah. And according to more recent logic, Sub-Zero can output 63,000 PSI, which is less than what Sonya did. So with that in mind, while Johnny does have his advantages, including the fact that I'm rooting for him, I think Captain Falcon's sheer raw power advantage is way too much for Johnny. But if they don't use the anime and they don't use Smash, then Johnny probably has the advantage here. Yeah, I know I said Captain Falcon is 3,632 times stronger than Johnny, and the title says closer than I thought, but it's not a lie. I thought Falcon was planet level, but he's not. I have no idea what about Cartoon Fight Club I might have misconstrued to think that.
It created a blast that was nearly as wide as a whole galaxy.
Oh, right. They misunderstood Ryu blowing up the space station as being a result of Captain Falcon's Falcon Punch. Which, it's not. But if it was, then Jesus. I think the winner is pretty clear if that's the case. But that's all I gotta say, guys. I think that Captain Falcon's gonna win this, but I really want Johnny to, because I like Johnny Cage. But let's be fair. Falcon's gonna destroy him.